In this video, let's discuss the future value when banks compound interest more than once in a year. It could be semi-annually, quarterly, or even monthly. Let's not directly jump to the formula on how to calculate future value in case of multiple compounding periods. Let's consider Mr. Bean places 1000 rupees as deposit in the bank for 1 year. Bank pays 10% per annum interest compounded semi-annually. Now, what does it mean by semi-annually? Compounded semi-annually means bank pays interest after every 6 months. So, if the deposit is of 1 year, bank will pay interest after every 6 months. So, in a 1 year, there are two compounding periods. Now, Mr. Bean wants to know the future value of 1000 at the end of year 1. Okay, let's say this is time 0, 1000 deposited in the bank, and after 6 months, bank will pay interest to Mr. Bean. Now, please note 10% per annum is the annual rate of interest, and for the 6 months, it will be 5%. So at the end of the 6th month, 1000 is the deposit amount and bank will pay interest after 6 months since it's a semi-annual compounding. So 1000, 5%, 50. Mr. Bean will earn 50 rupees as interest income after 6 months. The total amount is 1050. Now, since the deposit is for a 1 year, after 6 months, bank will pay interest. Now, this time not on 1000, on 150. 5%, 52.5. Now, the total value comes out to be 1102.5. Now, this is the future value in case of semi-annual compounding. In case of 2-year deposit, there would be 4 compounding periods. In case of 3-year deposit, there would be 6 compounding periods. So in a 1 year, in case of semi-annual compounding, there are 2 compounding periods because the interest is paid after every 6 months. Now consider Mr. John. Mr. John places 1000 deposit in a bank. We'll call it Super Bank for 1 year, and bank pays 10% rate of interest per annum compounded quarterly. Compounding quarterly means that bank pays interest after every 3 months. In a 1 year, there are 4 quarters of 3 months each, so bank pays after every 3 months interest. So accordingly, in a 1 year, there are 4 compounding periods. Let's say Mr. John deposited at the time of 0 1000 rupees in a bank, and after 3 months Mr. John will earn interest. Now 10% is the annual interest, and for the 3 months interest would be for 3 months 2.5%. So 2.5% of 1000 is the interest, which comes out to be 25, and the total amount is 1025. And after 3 months, again after 3 months, Mr. John will earn interest on, not on 1000 but 1025, 2.5%, which is 25.625, and the total amount at the end of the 6 months 1050.625. And again after 3 months, interest Mr. John will earn interest on 1050.625, which is 26.25, and the total at the end of the 9 months would be 1076.88. And again after 3 months, now this time interest will be earned on 1076.88, which is 26.92, and at the end of the year 1, total amount is 1103 rupees 80 paise. This amount is the future value. So if there is quarterly compounding in a 1 year, there are 4 compounding periods, and for 2-year deposits there are 8 compounding periods. So here's the scary formula. So please remember the concept and then just look at the formula. Present value is the cash flow today. 1 plus R is the rate of interest, divided by M. M, number of times compounding is done during a year. For semi-annually compounding, compounding is done 2 times in a year, so it will be 2. For quarterly compounding, compounding is done 4 times in a year. So 4. N multiplied by M, raised to power N multiplied by M. Okay. Calculate the compound value when rupees 1000 is invested for 3 years and the interest on its compounded at 10% per annum semi-annually. कैलकुलेट करना है 1000 इन्वेस्ट किए हैं 3 years के लिए एंड सेमी एनुअली कंपाउंडिंग है 10% रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट पे. तो इफ यू जस्ट रिकॉल द फॉर्मूला, so future value equals to present value 1 plus R divided by M. M is the number of times compounding is done in a year. N multiplied by M. So if it is semi-annually, compounding is done 2 times in a year. After every 6 months, interest is paid. So present value, initial outflow is 1000. 1 plus R, 10% is the rate for a year, annual rate of interest, and compounding is done 2 times in a year, so divided by 2. And for 3 years, so there would be 6 compounding periods. 1000, 1.056. This 1 point, if I solve this, so this is the future value. In my next video, we will calculate future value using Excel.